Good morning. I'm Eric Blank, and this is the Commissioners' Weekly Meeting for Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. Commissioner Gilman, any preliminary remarks? Are you ready to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Good morning. Nothing additional, so I would vote to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Plant.
I would also vote to approve the consent.
The dog days of summer have hit.
Early warning.
As would I. Let's skip the Markets Plus thing. We only have 3 items, but we'll finish with that. Let's go to proceeding number 25A-0220G. Ms. Dundas, Mr. Davis, the Public Service Company of Colorado, GEP.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent. On May 23rd, Public Service Company of Colorado filed an application for approval of its second gas infrastructure plan. This plan is for the period 2025 through 2030. The plan, or GIP, includes 62 plan projects that, according to Public Service, meet the Commission's GIP rule thresholds. Public Service requests approval of the GIP in accordance with Rule 4555 and a presumption of prudence of planned projects within that gas infrastructure plan and the associated cost estimates. Certificates of public convenience and necessity for 2 projects, one the Louisville to Rollins Pass project and the other the Spear Canal Interconnects project. Approval of the company's proposed non-pipeline alternative project cost recovery structure that would use the existing electric and gas demand-side management cost adjustments. Approval of deferred counting for the expenses associated with this case, and approval of any waivers or variances from the Commission's rules or decisions to the extent the Commission finds that necessary. The application is supported by direct testimony of 13 witnesses. This morning, Ms. Dundas, Commission Counsel, and I will present this application for discussion. The matters to take up, or whether this will be a matter that's set for hearing, whether to address the interventions and establish the parties to the case, whether to grant the motion for extraordinary protection that the company filed with the application, and whether to order Public Service to file supplemental direct testimony addressing certain topics. So before you begin your discussion on setting the matter for hearing, I'll provide some background. Overall, the GIP includes more than $572 million of estimated capital expenditures over that planning period. That includes the infrastructure that is part of the Mountain Energy Project, which is before the Commission for approval in a separate proceeding, proceeding number 25A-0044EG. The majority of the presented projects here are claimed to be in the system safety and integrity category. That $572 million of GIP projects compares to the company's total spending forecast over the same time period, which is roughly $570 million for each year, 2025 through 2029. So again, nearly 2/3 of that overall spending fits in the system safety and integrity bucket. So put another way, the $572 million of capital expenditures presented in this GIP represents only about 20% of the forecasted expenditures from 2025 through 2030. The 2 projects with the most profile are, of course, those for which the company is seeking a CPCN. CPCNs for gas projects of this type are a relatively new thing in the PUC's regulatory framework. The first CPCN was for gas utility projects associated with the West Metro project. That was a case that the Commission heard a couple of years ago. CPCNs are also being sought in the ongoing Mountain Project case, but the CPCNs there are for a much different type of investment, that is for compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas supplemental supply facilities. The 2 projects here for CPCNs are the Louisville to Rollins Pass project that I mentioned. It addresses exposed pipe and fits within the company's Gas Transmission Integrity Management Plan, or TIMP. The project's located in the mountain area near Rollins Pass. It is intended to mitigate 2 exposures on a critical 10-inch gas supply line to the region. And the total cost of that project is expected to be about $22.8 million. The Spear Canal Interconnects project is a capacity expansion project located along the Front Range. It's 5 interrelated projects intended to address reliability and forecasted supply constraints in both the Denver and Northern gas systems. The project is driven in part by the loss of one of the company's suppliers on the Northern gas system. It's also intended to address forecasted growth in peak hour load, both in the Northern and the Denver systems. And it also is intended to meet supply needs for future planned gas-fired generation for electric service. The 5 interrelated projects include two new supply interconnections, upgrading an existing meter station, installing a new permanent regulation facility, relocating an existing meter station, and installing new odorization facilities. The total cost of that project is expected to be about $42.7 million. So Ms. Dundas will follow with a presentation of the interventions, some of which include an explicit request that the Commission set this matter for hearing. But for your first decision point, the question is whether this case will be set for hearing.
Why don't you give us a recommendation, Mr. Davis?
I think, given the request for hearing, the Commission should set this matter for hearing, and the Commission can decide today or at a future weekly meeting who hears the case.
I'm pretty good with setting it for hearing, but maybe we could decide next week about who hears it. But Commissioner Gumman, thoughts, questions, comments?
Yes, I'm fine with setting it for hearing, and I don't know if you want to have any discussion today about who hears it or put that entire discussion next week. I'm not sure.
If you have thoughts, let's hear them. But if you don't mind voting next week, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm fine to vote next week. You know, that seems a particularly challenging one to send to an ALJ, especially it being the first adjudicated. Yep. So I think it's appropriate for the Commission to keep it in some fashion, whether that's on bank or as a hearing, sure. I think either route technically works. Like I have no burning need to hear it alone, but I think I would if that is what it came to as a way to have the Commission hear it. So happy to discuss all the pros and cons now or next week.
I'm fine doing it en banc or with you as hearing commissioner. But if we can make that decision next week, that'd be great. Commissioner Plant, vote on a hearing and thoughts about who hears it, where, what, when.
Yeah, I would support sending it to hearing. And Mr. Davis, I don't know if there's what are the sort of the time implications of hearing commissioner versus en banc?
Sure. The application was deemed complete by operation of the Commission's rules prior to this meeting, and a final decision in this matter is due sometime in March. That would mean that if the Commission hears this en banc, the hearing would likely be in January, probably to end no later than January 23rd. If the matter goes to a hearing commissioner, then the hearing would need to be probably sometime in November of this year, so that a recommended decision comes out in time for the Commission to take up exceptions to that decision in March.
That might influence our decision. Look at the sort of the calendars of November and December, I guess.
All right, Mr. Davis, Ms. Dundas, you want to keep going?
Sure. Ms. Dundas will now present the intervention platings, and that will lead to the establishment of the parties. And I think she's also going to present Public Services motion for extraordinary protection.
Thank
Ms.
you, Mr.
Dundas.
Davis. I do plan on presenting both because it sounds like an ALJ is off the table as how this case will be heard. Normally we would refer all of these with it, but since it'll either be Commissioner Gilman or the three of you, as long as those are the two paths we can do the interventions. Okay, so in this case, so far we've received interventions from the Colorado Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate, CEO, and Commission staff. Each filed a timely notice of intervention. The Commission also received motions to permissively intervene from Denver, the Natural Resource Defense Council, Rewiring America, Sierra Club, SWEEP, and WRA, which are collectively intervening as the conservation advocates. The Colorado Communities for Climate Action, or CC4CA, and then the Colorado Renewable Energy Society / Physicians for Social Responsibility Colorado chapter, and in a joint motion for intervention. We also received a motion for intervention from the Colorado Association of Home Builders and the Home Builders Association of Metro Denver, both of which are trade groups that represent home builders across Colorado. And then from two individuals, first, Mr. Justin Knowles, who states he is a dry utility coordinator with years of experience in Colorado. And then from Mr. Christopher Fellows, who may also be intervening to represent Resolute Strategies, Inc., but it was unclear from its filing. And his filing included comments on the technical and economic viability of all-electric construction in Colorado. So I can provide a recommendation at this point.
That'd be great.
So we recommend acknowledging the interventions of staff, CEO, and UCA, and granting the requests for intervention from Denver, CC4CA, Conservation Advocates, CREST / Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Home Builders Coalition. We also recommend granting CREST / Physician for Social Responsibility Colorado's motion to accept its out-of-time intervention, as its intervention was filed 2 business days late. Perhaps we could take a vote there, and then I'll go on to the pro se interveners.
That works for me. Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I also agree.
Thank you. So as I said before, there's 2 pro se motions for intervention in this case, which have the following legal standard. A pro se intervener must meet the requirements of Rule 1401, which demonstrates the pecuniary and tangible interest in the proceeding and explains why their interest is not adequately represented by UCA or is inconsistent with other classes of customers represented by UCA. A pro se intervener must also satisfy Commission Rule 1201, which permits a non-attorney to represent only their own interests or those of a closely held entity. Beginning with Mr. Knowles, I recommend finding that he has not demonstrated in his filing that he has an interest independent from the UCA, nor has he demonstrated that he would be representing his personal interest and not that of a business endeavor. Therefore, I recommend denying his intervention. However, the order could encourage Mr. Knowles to provide public comment in the proceeding, as there will be various opportunities to do so. Regarding Mr. Fellows, I recommend finding that he has not met any of the standards of Rule 1401 to state a cognizable interest, nor is it clear from his late filed motion that he understands the distinction between a party and a commenter. It is also unclear whether he plans to represent himself as an individual or his business Resolute Strategies. So therefore, Council recommends construing Mr. Fellows' filing as public comment and considering it part of the record in that respect, but denying it to the extent it was an attempt to intervene in the proceeding.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the recommendation and would just invite both to submit comments. I read the comments and look forward to their participation, but I think that's a more effective way of engaging with this commission than having pro se interveners as parties. So that, Commissioner Gilman,
I agree.
Commissioner Plant.
I also agree.
Thank you.
Dunns.
Yeah, so I also have the motion for extraordinary protection to present today. Public Service filed it concurrent with this application, and it seeks extraordinary protection for the, quote, system-wide ESRI ArcGIS online map data provided as part of its filing pursuant to Section 40-3.21043 CRS and Commission Rule 4553. It also requests protection of the underlying infrastructure data and similar critically sensitive gas system infrastructure and location data. Specifically, the company seeks to protect data for the planned projects reported in the 2025 GIP, and for each planned project, the following attributes: the exact location, the pressure district/geographic area, the existing and proposed piping, and the proposed capacity pipeline criteria. And then for the entire distribution system, the location of each distribution pipe, the age of the distribution pipe, and the materials and types of each gas distribution type. During the follow-on M docket to the previous GIP 24M0261G, the company indicated that remote viewing of the ArcGIS online format might be a possibility. And in its MEP, it states that it confirms that it developed a solution for providing access to highly confidential information that would involve the company providing the necessary viewing license on behalf of the Commission Advisors Council, as well as on behalf of Intervenor Council and its representatives that are authorized to view the mapping data. This will avoid separate intervenor access costs and would also avoid in-person viewing of the mapping data. Public Service requests an order granting extraordinary protection of the highly confidential information with access limited to the Commission, state agencies, Colorado municipalities and counties, and environmental advocates that routinely practice before the Commission. The company argues that this is similar to what has been approved in the previous GIP and in other proceedings before ALJs. In addition, to facilitate the early sharing of this information, the company requests that the Commission approve this motion at the same time it renders a decision on interventions, and states that additional access for intervening parties can be addressed if appropriate via subsequent motions to amend the Commission's decision here. I have a recommendation if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it's appropriate to grant the MEP at this juncture. The parameters of access were discussed in the M docket, and on its face, the company's proposal seems reasonable. It's my understanding, based on your decision on interventions today, that all parties would meet the criteria for access to the highly confidential information except for the Home Builders Coalition. However, moving forward with ensuring that access is timely received by the other parties makes sense now to me. The company should also be directed to reach out to Commission advisory staff with directions on how to receive access for commissioners and advisory staff to the underlying data.
Commissioner Gutman.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Dundas. I agree and certainly appreciate the company bringing this forward early in the proceedings to allow that early access. This was certainly a topic covered in our end docket after the first skip, with a lot of interveners trying to find what the appropriate way to get access to some of that information is. So appreciate a path forward here, and hopefully as we see this play out, it's an appropriate protection and an appropriate path to get interveners that necessary mapping information. So I agree with your recommendation.
Commissioner Plant.
I agree.
As do I. Anything else on this one, Mr. Davis?
Given your discussion thus far, the next decision point would be whether to direct the company to file supplemental direct testimony, but this topic can return to a future weekly meeting agenda if you prefer. And those directives would be set out in a separate decision from the one adopted today, and could include the Commission's decision on whether the case is heard en banc or by a hearing commissioner.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to suggest supplemental direct today. So if we could bring it back next week, that'd be great.
Okay, so Ms. Dundas and I will prepare a decision setting the matter for hearing, establishing the parties, and granting the motion for extraordinary protection. And then a separate decision would be adopted at a future weekly meeting.
That'd be great. And you could do the first decision ABC.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, I think you're you got a lot on your plate this morning. Proceeding number 25M-0056E, closing an M docket. Progress.
Yes. Yeah, so I would like to present a recommendation to close this Community Solar Gardens M docket. The Commission opened it in February to collect information from Public Service Company of Colorado, Black Hills Colorado Electric, and the other stakeholders involved in Community Solar Gardens, or CSGs, regarding the implementation of Senate Bill 24207. The primary reason to close the proceeding is that Public Service has now filed its 2026 to 2027 Renewable Energy Plan in proceeding number 25A0194E. That plan puts into adjudication mode most of the issues surrounding inclusive community solar per Senate Bill 24207 with respect to Public Service. The case was referred to an ALJ by written decision that was issued yesterday. As explained in decision number C250068 opening this M docket, Senate Bill 24207 caused the replacement of the existing statute governing CSGs through December 31st of this year, with new provisions to be implemented starting January 1st of 2026. The new replacement provisions in the statute foster the development of inclusive community solar gardens, or CSG facilities having nameplate capacity ratings of 5 megawatts or less that interconnect to the distribution system of an investor-owned electric utility and that reserve at least 51% of the capacity for subscribers who are income qualified. Senate Bill 207 further requires the Commission to take novel actions regarding CSG subscriber organizations and protections for CSG subscribers. For example, the Commission must adopt a uniform disclosure form that identifies the information a subscriber organization or subscription coordinator must provide a potential subscriber. The CSG subscriber organizations or subscription coordinators must also provide, at the request of the Commission through another form, details regarding guaranteed discounts granted to subscribers. The Commission clarified in that decision that CSG subscriber organizations, subscription coordinators, or subscribers are not subject to the Commission's regulation, and that's all done in accordance with Senate Bill 207. Although I recommend that the Commission now close the SEM docket, work in the CSG arena is not over. We will have this ongoing adjudication in proceeding 25A0194E yet to complete, and we are working on draft forms that I just described, and we are still exploring the merits of launching a Colorado CSG task force informally with the stakeholders. And most importantly, the 2026 to 2027 scope of the Renewable Energy Plan leaves to a future comprehensive rulemaking the promulgation of provisions governing inclusive communities solar in 2028 and years beyond. It will be in that rulemaking where the Commission will fulfill its specific obligations in statute to conduct multilingual and culturally relevant outreach, to engage, educate, and solicit input from representatives from disproportionately impacted communities, and to consider a process to compensate individuals who participate in the outreach for their participation. So again, my recommendation is to close this proceeding this morning by minute entry, and thank you for the opportunity to express to the public what are the intended next steps by the Commission staff to further complete our obligations under Senate Bill 207.
I wonder if we lost Commissioner Goman. Commissioner Goman. We can give her Commissioner Plant. Are you okay closing this docket?
I am.
As am I. I think we can do this with an ABC order and then maybe take a few minute break and see if Commissioner Goman can rejoin us. We're certainly not going to proceed with the Markets Plus discussion without Commissioner Goman. And I guess this one could be an ABC order, Mr. Davis.
Well, if it's all right, we could do this by minute entry.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see if that's Commissioner Goman.
Hey, sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Are you all right closing that M docket by minute entry?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I lost internet, so I'll keep trying to get it back, but I'll hang on with you for by phone until I can do so.
Would you like to take a break, Commissioner Goman, or are you okay if we go on to the Markets Plus discussion?
I think you can move forward, especially to the extent there's some, background and intro in the Markets Plus, and I'm really hoping I can get some video fully functioning before we get into our deliberation.
Sounds good. We'll go forward with the presentation. Mr. Deaver, Ms. Rosati, 25A-0075E, Public Service Company of Colorado application to join Markets Plus.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Gerald Deaver of your advisory staff. I'm joined by Wendy Rosati of Commission Counsel. This morning, the Commission takes up deliberations on Public Service Company of Colorado's application requesting that the Commission find it is in the public interest for the company to enter into the Southwest Power Pool's Markets Plus organized wholesale electricity energy markets. Public Service also seeks authorization to recover the costs associated with participating in Markets Plus through the Electric Commodity Adjustment, or the ECA. I'll start with a brief overview of relevant commission rules, followed by a summary of the applications, requests, and party positions, and then provide an overview of the rule and policy considerations that the commission may consider before turning it over to the commission for your discussion. Ms. Rosati will also have a recommendation on the motion that was filed subsequent to the hearings, her recommendation on the motion to strike filed by Public Service. Commission Rule 3753 specifies that Public Service's participation in a day-ahead market or DAM, such as Markets Plus, shall be determined to be in the public interest if the commission finds that the markets in which the utility seeks to participate has in place protocols that will implement a greenhouse gas or GHG tracking and accounting system, enabling the fair and timely tracking, reporting, and accounting of GHG emissions sufficient to ensure compliance with Colorado's emission reduction requirements. Second, that it has a plan in place to put policies and operational practices in place to optimize the efficient dispatch, exchange of energy, and unit commitment between markets. Where there is more than one regional market construct operating or proposed to operate in Colorado. And finally, that the market has that there has been sufficient modeling and other analytical support showing that the expected benefits of joining that market, including production cost decreases, reliability improvements, and emission reductions, are likely to exceed the expected costs. As you know, Markets Plus will consist of 3 market products: a regional day-ahead market, an in-day real-time market, and third, a flexibility reserve product market. SPP established 2 phases for developing Markets Plus. Phase 1 was the process of designing, submitting, and gaining Federal Energy Regulatory Commission approval for a Markets Plus tariff, which was received from FERC on January 16th of this year. Public Service estimates that its share of Phase 1 costs will be around $2 million. Phase 2, going forward, incorporates the additional staffing, hardware, software development, and other activities that will be required by SPP to implement Markets Plus. Total SPP Phase 2 costs will be approximately $150 million, which SPP intends to recover from market participants through an administrative fee that will be assessed on all market transactions once the market is up and running. SPP intends to secure a loan to finance the implementation costs and to repay the loan over the first 5 years of Markets Plus operation. The company estimates that administrative fees on market activities for itself will approximate $10 million annually, and its share of the Market Plus financing costs will be approximately $4 million annually for the first 5 years of its participation in Markets Plus. The company will also be required to post its share of collateral for the SPP financing, consisting of $2 million of cash and an $18 million letter of credit. At this time, as the loan is repaid, the amount of the letter of credit will reduce accordingly. Markets Plus will not include a generating capacity product, and so participation in the markets will require the company and all other participants to become members of the Western Resource Adequacy Program, or the WRAP, administered by the Western Power Pool. The company estimates these costs to be approximately $750,000 annually and a one-time entry fee of $200,000. The company proposes to amortize and recover the entry fee over the first year of market participation. Finally, Public Service estimates that integrating its internal systems into Markets Plus will require $13 to $15 million of software and IT system upgrades to align with SPP market integration methodologies. The company proposes to develop a standalone revenue requirement for these costs through the ECA until such time as the costs are incorporated in a company base rate proceeding. Following the Commission's May 27th and 28th en banc hearings on the application, statements of position were submitted by Public Service, trial staff, utility consumer advocate, the Colorado Energy Office, the Colorado Energy Consumers, Climax Molybdenum Company, Black Hills Colorado Electric, Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association, Holy Cross Electric Association, Western Resource Advocates, and Advanced Energy United. CEC, Climax, WRA, and AEU asked the Commission to deny the application. They argue that Public Service has failed to show that joining Marcus Plus is in the public interest based on the standards set forth in the Commission's rules. Staff and CEO are less adamant about their concerns about Public Service joining Market Plus. CEO concludes that the Commission can deny Public Service's application because there is not sufficient evidence demonstrating participation in Markets Plus is in the public interest. Staff similarly suggests it would be reasonable for you to reject the company's application to join Markets Plus. In contrast, UCA views participation in Markets Plus as providing potential reliability benefits, but not necessarily a cost-effective endeavor given unknown transmission costs. UCA recommends that the Commission approve the application to participate in and recover the costs associated with joining Markets Plus, but only after ordering the company to implement reasonable guardrails and consumer protections. Tri-State and Holy Cross support the company's plan to join Markets Plus. Holy Cross asked the Commission to condition to approve the application on Public Service keeping its commitments related to GHG tracking. Tri-State states that because it has resources and loads within Public Service's balancing area, or BA, it expects to realize benefits similar to Public Service if the Commission approves the application. Tri-State also indicates that it intends to join SPP's RTO West in the Western Interconnection, and the recently filed similar and has recently, as you know, filed a similar application with the Commission. Black Hills advises the Commission that it is concerned about SPP's lack of any firm plan or timeline to put in place policies and operational practices to optimize efficient dispatch and unit commitment between Markets Plus and RTO West. Despite this concern, Black Hills indicates it will consider filing its own Markets Plus application sometime in the future. Black Hill argues that such market coordination will increase the benefits to both Markets Plus and RTO West participants, and consequently would bring benefits to Colorado consumers. Public Service attempts to rebut and overcome the objections raised by the intervening parties, who recommend that the application be denied or otherwise sets forth reasons why the Commission can find good cause for denying the application. The company further raises objections to specific guardrails or conditions proposed by the interveners. The company concludes that Markets Plus satisfies the requirements set out in Rule 3753 and that it has sufficiently supported determinations and findings that the participation in Markets Plus is in the public interest. Public Service further asks the Commission to authorize the company's recovery of associated costs through the ECA. With that overview, I'll now turn to specific considerations under the Commission's rules. The first consideration is GHG tracking and reporting. In its order approving SPP Markets tariff, FERC accepted SPP's proposal to accommodate GHG programs as a just and reasonable approach to account for state-regulated GHG policies in Markets Plus, but noted that not all implementation and operation details need to be included in the tariff. According to Public Service, it and other market participants, along with SPP, continue to finalize a GHG tracking and reporting system, and with several key areas identified for future development. In that regard, in the hearing, a letter signed by representatives of Public Service and Tri-State was provided to the Commission describing areas of alignment regarding the Markets Plus GHG protocols, some of which would also apply to GHG tracking and reporting in RTO West. Through proceeding number 24A 0449 EG, the Commission solicited comments on that letter previously. WRA argues that Marcus Plus does not have final protocols in place to implement a GHG tracking and accounting system that will ensure compliance with Colorado climate targets. WRA contends that a regional market can only support Colorado's decarbonization goals if there are GHG design and systems in place to track and report GHG emissions. They further argue that the September letter from Public Service and Tri-State to the Commission cannot reasonably be considered a Market Plus protocol and is irrelevant to a Commission finding that it is in the public interest. AEU contends that it is unclear, even when Marcus Plus tracking and accounting systems are in place, whether they will be sufficient to meet Colorado law. To advisors, AEU's arguments appear to presume that the GHG requirements for public interest cannot be met until all Market Plus protocols are for GHG tracking and reporting are finalized. AEU joins other interveners, such as the CEU and Holy Cross, in pointing to changes in federal policy that raise uncertainty as to how or whether GHG may be allowed, if at all, to be tracked and reported. The CEC criticizes the reliance on a now state Western Reliability Flexibility Report as a guide towards relative GHG reductions. Staff argues that if the federal government decides to prohibit tracking within SPP markets, which to staff it appears may be a real probability given recent federal actions, and is also a concern raised by multiple parties in the proceeding, it would make it difficult and potentially impossible for staff and commission to verify that Public Service is complying with Colorado emissions reductions requirements. Public Service explained that the market protocols for Marcus Plus rely on three main steps: resource mapping, energy allocation, and residual energy mix determination that will allow SPP to conduct hourly GHG accounting for each load responsible entity. Public Service notes that it is active in a market participant working group. The MGHG task force has been done so for some time and continues to work towards a consensus on market protocols that will further detail the operation of tracking and reporting. In response to intervener criticisms that the protocols remain a work in progress, Public Service notes that it, as well as some interveners in this proceeding, remain actively involved in the GHG task force, and that the parking lot items currently identified by the task force are secondary to the overall operation and effectiveness of final market protocols. While these items were suggested by the interveners as indicative of incompleteness, WRA also acknowledged its own participation in that task force, as well as its approval of specific items that are being taken by this stakeholder group to advance the protocols. Public Service contends that the record supports a commission finding that the Marcus Plus tracking protocols, as being advocated by the task force, sufficiently conform to Colorado's requirements and is structured to avoid any conflict or interference with Colorado GHG regulations. Public Service also contends that the market's DAM protocols will fairly and timely track, report, and account for GHG emissions and sufficiently ensure compliance with the state's statutory emission reduction requirements. Finally, Public Service believes that Marcus Plus is currently set to enable participant compliance with any individually applicable GHG requirements. Another key issue in the hearing was SEAMS. AEU contends that Public Service has not proven that Marcus Plus has a plan put in place to manage SEAMS policies and practice with the SPP RTO West. AEU argues that at best Marcus Plus has a plan to make a plan, and that the effort by SPP to develop a SEAMS strategy and roadmap merely identifies problems without any identifying solutions. Finally, AEU argues that Public Service's claim that a seam between Marcus Plus and RTO West would be manageable since both markets are operated by the same entity, SPP. AEU contends that this is without evidentiary support. WRA argues that there's no concrete plan in place to address seams between Markets Plus and neighboring markets. Staff expresses concerns that membership of Markets Plus will likely result in a significant market seam within Colorado, particularly between Public Service, Tri-State, and the WAPA. Staff is further concerned that WAPA opposes a real-time dispatchable transaction tool described by the company, in other words, the RTDT, on the grounds that it lacks the effectiveness of market-to-market seams, coordination, and zonal resource optimization. Staff believes that Public Services joining Markets Plus is unlikely to provide reliability benefits and could result in reliability problems. Public Service acknowledges that there will be seams between Markets Plus and RTO West expansion, contends that the efforts are underway in SPP market participants working groups to address these seams and develop future optimization opportunities. It describes the RTDT as intending to optimize the seam between Public Service and the future RTO West balancing authority. On rebuttal, Public Service rejects criticisms that it has no tools in place to optimize seams transactions, contends that these interveners could mislead the Commission into assuming it should not prove any market participation until there are no seams that exist at all. Public Service argues that the RTDT was developed to enable any other transmission system adjacent to SPP to exchange energy on a price-sensitive basis until the Market Plus energy imbalance market product begins operation in October of 27. SPP notes that the RTDT has been approved through the SPP governance process as at the Market Participant Executive Committee and is now included in the Markets Plus Seams strategy and roadmap. Finally, Public Service notes that at a recent public SPP Markets Plus Executive Committee meeting, it was announced that SPP is beginning the development of an intermarket optimization framework similar to the efforts that have proven successful between the New York ISO and ISO New England. To that extent, it is beneficial to transfer power from one market to the other. The market operation would implement an interchange schedule and settle at the locational marginal price in the neighboring market. Public Service further notes that both real-time energy imbalance markets in the West, SPP's WEIS and the Cal ISO's WEIM, currently perform a similar process by optimizing real-time optimization of available resources and transmission between balancing authorities. A third key issue was modeling and analytic support. Many parties, AEU, WRA, CEO, took issue with the use of the Western Markets Exploratory Groups, WMEG, to which Public Service was a member, study and then Public Service's manual modifications to arrive at projected cost savings. Generally, these parties state that the Markets Plus footprint is different from the footprint selected from the study, that the 478 megawatt export limit assumed by Public Service overstates the likely transfer limit between it and Four Corners, and that Public Service's manual scaling of the benefits by the likely transfer capacity is either not well supported or is too simplistic. They also contend that a single year of analysis, 2026, is problematic and that Public Service's extrapolation of benefits by load growth is too simplistic. Public Service anticipates financial and operating benefits from participating in Markets Plus, including access to expanded resource markets, which allows for additional opportunities to source energy needed and to support system reliability, opportunities to manage the company's generation capacity resources more efficiently through market sales, which can result in net revenues and reduce curtailments and further stabilization of rates long term. Public Service believes that there will be an opportunity for these benefits to grow as the market develops and additional efforts continue among the market participants to reduce friction with other regional markets, specifically the RTO West expansion, through more efficient schemes. It suggests that Markets Plus will provide an opportunity for the company to continue to test and learn by operating within the Western power market space. Finally, if Public Service were to take no action, its participation in the organized markets will come to an end in 2026 with the cessation of the SPP WEIS market, which will be folded into Markets Plus. Harvard Public Service rebutted that the footprint scenario selected in the WMEG better reflects reality and that the company's limited interconnection to the Pacific Northwest required it to land on a similar footprint area. On rebuttal in the hearing, Public Service supported its use of the 478 megawatt export capability by stating that export capability internal to the Public Service BA is important and that day-ahead and real-time optimization of Black Hill and tri-state systems in its BA is an important benefit. Public Service also argues that since it is proposed to join Markets Plus, rather than a full RTO, a more detailed analysis is not required at this time, citing the Commission's original order approving the rules for joining an organized wholesale market, which only call for sufficient modeling and other analytic support showing that expected benefits are likely to exceed the expected costs, noting that the Commission denied requiring comparative DAM studies. Public Service argues that additional studies may not be significantly more accurate and would delay its participation and ability to push for beneficial design changes in the market participant sector. Public Service also argues that considering costs and benefits only through 2023, as was suggested by one intervener, incorrectly ignores its longer-term analysis through 2040. Finally, regarding cost recovery, intervening parties generally oppose Public Service's request for recovery of related costs through the ECA. Their arguments include noting that the ECA is intended to recover variable fuel-related expenditures. Public Service's request would shift risk onto customers, and that a prudence review that would otherwise occur by including these costs in a base rate proceeding would be lost. Interveners also argued that the Commission's prior approval for PSCo to include costs related to its membership in the WEIS should not be precedential, and that the treatment afforded there resulted from a settlement agreement. PSCo rebutted that market transaction-related fees would be directly related to market transactions and are otherwise includable in the ECA, and thus the SPP admin costs for these transactions should be included in the ECA as well. Public Service did note at hearing, however, that it could accept a Commission finding that the company's internal costs for IT and software be deferred for inclusion in a subsequent base rate proceeding. Some other issues included were that CEC, AEU, and WRA argued that comparative analysis of other available markets, including full RTO participation, should be required. CEC and AEU also raised that action taken in this proceeding shouldn't hinder future opportunities for PSCo to join a statutory organized wholesale market as is required. Public Service explains that it selected Markets Plus for several reasons. Public Service prefers Markets Plus as the only day-ahead market available to it that has been designed and built by Western market participants. The company believes that the economic benefits of Market Plus participation exceeded those of the Cal ISO EDAM, which is scheduled to start operating in 2026. Public Service prefers Markets Plus because it includes a flexibility reserve product along with the day-ahead energy market and does not assume control of Public Service's transmission assets or transmission planning. Public Service views SPP as being a fully independent and impartial market operator with no role as a transmission service provider. Finally, while cost savings are anticipated to be moderate in the near term, the company argues that itself, other market participants, and SPP will continue to work together and are committed to continuing improvements to both Market Plus and SPP RTO West to further optimize the markets. With that background, I will now pause for the Commission's discussion or questions, and I can also offer recommendations if the Commissions would like them.
Thank you, Mr. Deaver. Greatly appreciate the thoughtful overview and summary. I propose we just jump into the merits of Market Plus and then take up the cost recovery and other ancillary guardrail issues, maybe secondary. And I'll start off sharing my thoughts, and then I'll turn it over to you guys to go wherever you'd like. And I just say generally, for the reasons outlined by the company and the other utilities, I'm generally supportive of the application, and I'll just share some detailed thoughts that I have, but not necessarily try to be comprehensive. And I just say, for me, this record shows that there's limited transmission between Colorado and our out-of-state neighbors, with significant transmission constraints to the north, south, east, and west. As a result, the primary transmission interconnectivity for the Colorado utilities appears to be within and between the two Colorado balancing authorities, one run by WAPA and the other by Xcel. I also think the record is clear that the WAPA Balancing Authority is committed to join SPP RTO West. WAPA, as well as other key utilities in the WAPA Balancing Authorities, have load and generation on both sides of the asynchronous divide, especially in SPP RTO East. So the WAPA commitment to fund and join SPP RTO West seems firm to me and makes economic and logistical sense. And it's clear that this commission has no real regulatory authority over WAPA. So given the limited Colorado transmission system and the WAPA commitment to join SPP RTO West, one core question for me in evaluating the costs and benefits of Markets Plus is, what's the best way to integrate the two Colorado balancing authorities to create mutual benefit, with benefits broadly defined, consistent with the our decision and the hearing commission decision that led to these regional market rules. So in evaluating the costs and benefits of Markets Plus, I want to talk about issues surrounding resource adequacy, GHG accounting, and access to transparent wholesale market prices that, in my view, were not quantified in the production cost modeling that was the focus of much of this hearing. In addition, I believe there are other operational issues beyond dispatch involving optimizing unit commitment, utilization of the existing transmission system, transmission expansion, and reserve sharing that are also impacted by the choice of which markets to join. Given that background, I want to first talk about resource adequacy. In Colorado, as I understand it, there is currently no binding state or regional resource adequacy standard for municipal utilities, distribution co-ops, or third-party power marketers that creates a consistent approach to determining planning reserve margin, project capacity value, or overall resource adequacy. As a result, unregulated entities in Colorado may be able to lean on the two Colorado BAs with no adverse economic consequences in ways that can impose significant customer costs that could be far greater than the type of difference we're seeing between administrative costs and production cost savings, which is much of the focus of the hearing. For me, having PSCo join Markets Plus will result in all market participants in the balancing authority having to comply with a RAP, which puts in place a common set of methodologies determining planning reserve margin, capacity value, and overall resource adequacy. The RAP also creates binding financial penalties in the form of deficiency charges for market participants that fail to comply with the resource adequacy standards. Finally, the same RAP structure, methodologies, and rules will also apply to SPP RTO West, such that both Colorado balancing authorities and all market participants in Colorado will be bound by the same common resource adequacy framework. In contrast, if Public Service Company did not join Markets Plus, then the status quo with all its shortcomings would persist. Even if PSCo joined CAISO, Colorado would then have two separate and diverse methodologies for determining and managing resource adequacy, or RA. So for me, PSCo's entry into Markets Plus seems like a better path forward as compared to doing nothing or joining EDAM for addressing RA concerns. Like the situation with RA, there is currently no common approach to GHG accounting in Colorado in terms of defining study regions, mapping GHG emissions to generators, determining dispatch methodology, or requiring data disclosure that would apply equally to all utilities. As a result, I've been concerned that this failure limits Colorado's ability to effectively review utility and other claims of GHG reductions and statutory compliance. For me, the Joint Public Service Tri-State and Air Pollution Control Division letter, to be implemented as part of the Market Plus process and applicable to all market participants in Colorado, systematically addresses these shortcomings across both Colorado BAs. More specifically, it defines GHG regions, maps GHG emissions to the entities that claim capacity credit for an individual resource, identifies a specific energy allocation dispatch method, and develops standards for key data disclosure. So if Public Service does not join Markets Plus, then GHG accounting in Colorado may remain a free-for-all with no common approach. Similarly, if PSCO were to join CAISO EDAM, a different set of GHG accounting methodologies would apply to the PSCO Balancing Authority as compared to the WAPA BA. So again, I think Markets Plus is a better way forward in terms of a consistent approach to GHG accounting. Finally, the establishment of the Western Energy Imbalance Service market resulted in publicly available and transparent wholesale pricing that I believe has real value for customers, VPP providers, generation project developers, and regulators. If Public Service does not join Markets Plus, this transparent wholesale market pricing data may no longer be publicly available. So for me, this is another advantage to Markets Plus as compared to doing nothing. So I believe these broader sort of non-quantifiable considerations are important benefits that support the company joining Markets Plus. On the operational side, enhanced regional coordination might include better optimizing dispatch, unit commitment, utilization of the existing transmission system, transmission planning, and reserve sharing. In my view, the potential benefits associated with better optimizing these functions is the primary motivation behind the statutory mandate to have Colorado utilities join an organized wholesale market, and what Dr. Dalkey called in his oral testimony, the prize. The Colorado Transmission Coordinating Act Capacity Expansion Modeling, funded by the legislature, modeled by trial staff, approved by the commission, and submitted as a report to the Colorado legislature at the end of 2021, found that better integration between Colorado balancing authorities could produce cost reduction savings in Colorado of as much as 4 to 5%, or $200 to $300 million per year, off an annual statewide revenue requirement of $6 billion. While these numbers were for full RTO participation, and that's certainly not what we have in front of us today, these potential savings are as much as 2 orders of magnitude greater than the dollar amounts that comprise the difference between the admin costs and production cost savings. In both his oral testimony and on redirect, Dr. Dalkey suggested that the rough order of magnitude savings was still likely to be correct, even though the original modeling was several years old. So for me, one of the key issues on the operational side is to determine which path forward on regional markets is likely to help better integrate the two Colorado balancing authorities across all these dimensions over time, what could be called seams management, but very broadly defined. Although the record wasn't totally unambiguous, it seems to me that Colorado would be better off having a single market operator across both of our BAs, even if the two BAs were in different SPP market structures. So for this reasons, and for the others outlined by Mr. Taylor in his written and oral testimony, I don't think it makes sense for the PSCO Balancing Authority to move toward CAISO EDAM, even if the production costs savings might be incrementally higher. Any progress towards better integrating the two Colorado BAs beyond production cost savings would have to occur between CAISO and SPP, which seems like it would be complex and perhaps difficult to achieve across these two separate operators. As such, for me, the SPP Market Plus path appears to be a better way forward on integration. Finally, overall, I understand that the production cost savings may not meaningfully exceed the admin costs for some time. But for me, it's more important to get Colorado on the right path forward and to start work on better integrating the two Colorado BAs. In sum, there are four choices in front of us. We can approve the application, shift towards CAISO, join SPP or RTO West, or we can deny the application and have Public Service Company do nothing. I've already stated my concerns with shifting towards CAISO in that we'd have a different RA and GHG accounting framework and would involve separate market operators across the two Colorado BAs in ways that would likely make further integration on the operational side more difficult. Although the best path forward would be to have both Colorado BAs in either Markets Plus or SPP RTO West, we don't have any authority over WAPA. And in terms of Public Service Company joining SPP RTO West, I found Mr. Taylor's concerns about turning over transmission planning and cost allocation to an RTO to be compelling at this time, given our ERP challenges. As such, I see benefits in the company and the PUC retaining current levels of control over the location, amount, timing, and cost of new transmission for some time period, and believe it's far too soon to turn these decisions over to an RTO. On option 4, I can't support denying the application and doing nothing. In my view, we just need to keep the funding in place and to keep pushing the two Colorado balancing authorities together on the operational side as best we can, again, to optimize dispatch, unit commitment, transmission utilization, transmission planning, and reserve sharing. For me, the admin and software costs are critical in funding the integration effort, and if we pull back the funding, I think this effort ends and our ability to shape these market structures largely disappears. As I've said before, for me, having a common framework for RI and GHG accounting across both balancing authorities and all of Colorado is a critical step forward, as is retaining access to transparent hourly prices, all of which goes away if the application is denied. So I'd vote to approve the application, but really looking forward to hearing what you guys think. And Commissioner Gilman, anywhere you'd like to go, questions, comments, thoughts, anywhere.
Yeah, I certainly was not coming at this in the same way as you from evaluation of the record. I guess I'll say at the onset. And I want to start by saying I certainly, no disrespect to the work you've done on markets. I very much appreciate your engagement on behalf of Colorado and in the rulemaking, and come to this with some humility that you have been far more involved than me in the past. And so certainly understand that point, and then wanted to admit that off the bat. But, you know, we also have to take this record as we see it. And, you know, I understand you lay out kind of the 4 practical options before us. The real actual option before us is join Markets Plus or not. And for that decision, we have to take this evidentiary record as we find it. And while I understand there may be some other kind of speculative benefits or issues that did not play a large role in this evidentiary record, that's a bit of a problem that they did not play a large role in this evidentiary record. You know, as I see it, kind of looking objectively at what we saw here, I have some significant concerns that the plan really appears to contain too small of benefits at too high of a cost to really be able to accurately show that the benefits outweigh the costs as we look. The modeling that the company submitted doesn't show annual benefits prior to 2032 at the earliest, and wouldn't show cumulative benefits until 2038. And of course, that's based on the original JTS sales forecasts, which have since been decreased pretty substantially. So with lower sales forecasts, I'm worried that actually further harms the look of when we'll actually be able to see cumulative benefits accrue to customers based on that modeling. So I think, you know, if we see more modest growth numbers, we don't have a great analysis in this record of what that would look like, but it's possible that the economics look even worse, which is troubling as we look forward. certainly I understand your points on the resource adequacy situation where we might have some free ridership going on, might lead to some concerns. You know, if that is our primary concern here, I think there is potentially an option to join the RAP absent the expenses of joining the entirety of Markets Plus. You know, if the majority of those benefits come from joining the RAP, that is only one small piece of the costs that are being considered here for the larger Markets Plus consideration. So I guess in evaluating the resource adequacy concerns, I'm not sure why that leads to Markets Plus being the only solution, and it certainly is an expensive solution to that problem as we go forward. I also take your greenhouse gas reporting comments. I know this has been an issue you've worked on, and we have big ambitions to see this working well and really allowing us to have the proper accounting to ensure that Colorado is on its path to greenhouse gas reduction. But I also acknowledge that parties brought up some significant concerns here about the enhanced potential for federal interference, especially with markets, which is concerning. So it's just so hard to know what direction that's going to go at this point, if that really will produce benefits or could just result in a very frustrated process as we move forward. So yeah, and the other thing I think we need to consider, and certainly acknowledging that the rules do not require them to evaluate other markets, but it's possible that the situation could dictate that that would be a smart idea for us to evaluate in this situation. You know, in this specific case, we're looking at modeling that does not suggest any benefits before the statutory requirement to join an organized wholesale market. And the company expressed, yes, concerns about some of the operational and control characteristics of an organized wholesale market, but no real like intense analytical support for an organized wholesale market. And they also expressed their intent to essentially use the negative economic situation that the Market Plus participation would be in at that point in time in evaluating the economics of moving to a different market construct by the statutory deadline. So in essence, that kind of is being evaluated by some extension here if we enter Markets Plus knowing that we will still be underwater in terms of costs on that by the statutory deadline to join an OWM. So while I understand the rules don't require that, the practical situation here in terms of when the benefits and costs will hit and the relationship to that statutory requirement is a bit concerning, not having any more fulsome evaluation of what that alternative would really look like, especially when we saw most of the modeling, but from the PUC and others, shows that RTOs contain the largest benefit in terms of savings to customers. So I have some concerns about taking action now that could harm the benefits of that choice and that actual evaluation as it comes in time based on the statutory requirement. So those are some of my concerns at a high level, and be happy to hear where Commissioner Plant is and have further discussion.
Yeah, I'll turn to Commissioner Plant in a second, but I do have a couple questions for you. Given that this utility is proposing to spend $22 billion on capital in the next 5 years, and the type of spending that they're doing in the ERP, I mean, everywhere, wildfire mitigation, distribution system planning, can you help me understand why you're so persuaded that a couple $1 million here on production cost savings versus administrative costs is like moving the needle so significantly for you? Why are you relying on a couple $1 million here versus there, given the bigger issues at stake here on everything, resource adequacy, trying to integrate the two Colorado balancing authorities? It just seems, as the party said, and this record shows, it just seems so uncertain and really too small to shape this decision one way or another. So that'd be one question, if you can help me understand why you find that so persuasive.
Yeah, so a few thoughts. It's not a couple $1,000,000, right? The cumulative net cost in their modeling by 2030 would be 2031 close to $30 million. So it's larger than that, but I understand in the scheme of what the utility's spending, not a giant number. But also like this is a discrete decision point. Like yes, they're spending on the distribution system, they're spending on wildfire mitigation, but that's really a completely discrete issue from this market's decision. That spending will occur regardless of the decision here. And there really is no interaction, so far as I understand it. And so I see this really as a discrete decision point. As this decision point stands on its own, do the benefits outweigh the costs as we look forward in it? I think it's fairly clear from the modeling they do not. There could be other outside benefits that accrue that were not maybe like appropriately represented in the record, but I can't really guess as to what those are or give those some sort of weight that they weren't given in the evidentiary record. But I don't see it really relating to the other expenses. While I take your point that it is relatively small comparative cumulative or net cost compared to the others, I don't see it as in competition with those. This decision should stand on its own. And so if we're entering a market, it should be because it provides net benefits to Colorado consumers. And I'm just not seeing that represented appropriately in the evidentiary record.
I disagree with your characterization of the evidentiary record. I think it wasn't a main focus by the parties at hearing, but I do think it is part of the evidentiary record. But Commissioner Plant, where are you coming from?
Thanks. Well, first of all, I would echo Commissioner Gilman's thanks to you for all your work on this stuff.
There's a phrase from Game of Thrones where everything before the but is bullshit.
I'm not even going to put in a but. I'm just going to say it flat out.
Keep going.
No, I do appreciate it. And, one of the things that, I mentioned to the advisors was that, this is where I'm coming down, but I really do want to hear the chairman's position on this because you've been so involved since the beginning on this. But as I look at this, I'm kind of hung up in two areas. One, which I think Commissioner Gilman has adequately outlined, that what's before us here is not joining a wholesale market. It's not. We don't have the information on RTO West. We don't have information on other organized wholesale markets. It's really just Markets Plus. And the question is this in the public interest to join Markets Plus? I think you've identified a couple of things that provide operational efficiency and operational benefits by combining the market for both BAs, and that's absolutely on the positive side. And this is where I'm getting hung up, is sort of a similar area where Commissioner Gilman was getting hung up, is that if you look out to 2042, I think you have something like a $17 million benefit or something like that. But we have a statutory directive in 2030 to be looking at an organized wholesale market. So we're really not looking at what are the benefits out to 2042. We're looking at what are the benefits between now and when we join an organized wholesale market according to statute, and that doesn't come out positive. And so I don't. There are some one-time. There's some ongoing expenses. We've got the 5-year commitment to repay the obligation, whether we stay in the market or we leave the market, which was was concerning. We've also got, I think, something around 13-14 million in software upgrades that we don't know if any of that would be sort of transferable to an organized wholesale market. And so that could be lost funding as well. And so I have a hard time looking at this within the context of where we're supposed to go from a statutory perspective. And, direct cost benefits between now and when we are supposed to join a organized wholesale market seem to be clearly underwater. So that's one of my concerns. The second concern of mine is really having to do with, I think it's brought up in the context of the GHG accounting, which, look, I take the company's word that they're going to, work diligently within the construct here to develop a good greenhouse gas accounting mechanism. I think the state's going to work really hard. I think they're going to, do all their due diligence, and they would come up with a good program. I am not convinced that the federal government is, a partner in this, and that is disappointing, because the federal government has been a partner for the last 100 years on energy matters, from federal power projects and creating the cooperative electric system to try and electrify the West, and on through to just recently. They've been a very good partner. But at this point, I don't think that we can say that. I think they're demonstrating that they're actually adversarial in a couple of situations, and currently in litigation to overturn public interest determinations by other public utilities commissions. So I'm not convinced that the federal government is a reliable partner in this. And, I think that our analysis, the company's analysis, will all be science-based, but I have not had any indication that the federal government is operating on a science-based basis. It's kind of more vibes. So I am very concerned about sort of, hitching ourselves to a wagon that's, being driven by a chipmunk on cocaine. It's just not a real, doesn't give me a nice, warm and fuzzy feeling. So that is a major concern to me right now, as we look at, entering into more federal oversight at a time when I don't think the federal government is a very reliable partner.
Two questions for you, but one on that last point. It seems to me that when you look at the Public Service Company tri-state letter, there's detailed data disclosures on an hourly basis. And no matter what the feds do, as long as we understand the energy generation on an hourly basis by unit, we can easily calculate the emissions. So I would think that no matter what the feds do, the data disclosure, the common mapping of emissions to resources, the approach on dispatch, and the data disclosure still gets us what we need. So do you have any comments? Does that help address your concern? Or I don't see the feds stop us from knowing what generation by unit by hour is.
Yeah, I think it does, to the extent that, on the one hand, any greenhouse gas accounting mechanism needs to be approved by FERC. And they've given preliminary approval, but we haven't
I don't
finished.
think that's true. I mean, there's state-based standards. It doesn't need to be approved by FERC. All we need from SPP is the generation by unit, and then we have everything we need to determine whether the utilities are complying with the statute. So I don't think this is subject to FERC approval.
Well, I mean, in our documents, I think we heard that the initial approval of the greenhouse gas accounting plan was approved by FERC in, was it 24 or?
Well, go ahead, Mr. Deaver. Do you want to jump in? I'm just saying that no matter what FERC does, I think we have the data to determine compliance from the generation numbers. I guess what I'm saying is I don't think FERC can stop us from getting hourly generation data that enables us to get what we need in terms of statutory compliance. So no matter what FERC does, I think we're gonna get what we need under that letter. Mr. Deaver.
I agree with you, Commissioner. Ms.
Which
Rosati
commissioner?
probably should weigh in as well,
You got two of them here.
FERC approved a GHG tracking mechanism in the tariff approval, and I don't think they're going to undo that. And at this point, it seems to me much more prudent to stay engaged in the development process going forward.
I guess the second thing, I disagree with your characterization that the feds are going to somehow unwind the GHG accounting, and to the extent they do, I believe we have the data we need. But I think if you deny this petition, I just think work on integrating the two balancing authorities in Colorado ends, and in a year or two we'll see a waiver for permission to not join an RTO. I mean, I just think this terminates the regional market discussion in the West. And the only path forward for me is to fund it and keep the conversation going. So curious if you have a response to that, Commissioner Platt.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my sense is, based on what the company has said, that they're going to submit a waiver to not join an RTO anyway. Either way, I think if we join Markets Plus, I think that's going to happen, and I think if we don't join Markets Plus, as you pointed out, I think that's also going to happen. But I think we're going to have to evaluate a regional market on its own merits when either a waiver or an application is submitted. What I had originally come into this thinking was that this was a pathway. It's more of a pathway to the RTO West than it is to, some future CAISO. But it was a pathway into a regional market. But in the testimony that we received and the testimony that's been filed, I haven't seen that has actually borne out. I think that it's really not. It seems to me that it's not very transferable across Markets Plus to a regional market, and then there's further financial commitments that are only applicable to Markets Plus, and that would be lost in a switch to a regional market.
I guess for me, I don't see it as so black and white between either yes or no on RTO. To me, there's a whole bundle of functions having to do with unit commitment, utilizing the transmission system, transmission planning, reserve sharing, that you can get to without necessarily going to the full RTO. So for me, those benefits are worth pursuing and worth investing in. And the few tens of millions of dollars, which I think comes out to a few $1,000,000 a year of admin costs, net of production cost savings, are just worth pursuing those integration benefits, whether it gets us to a full RTO or not. So that's where you're losing me. I just think, I just think this ends it. There's no money, there's no funding, there's no dialogue. If you two terminate this, I just think it's done because there's no funding.
So you think that, and I want to take the next week to sit and think about this, but your position is that if we don't approve Markets Plus, that there's not going to be a regional market because there's no inclination on the part of the company to join a regional market, and so they're not going to invest any kind of time or effort into doing that.
I'd say it a little different. I think the key for me, the key thing is to integrate the two Colorado balancing authorities. Whether it gets to a full RTO or not, the benefits are through greater integration. And if we say no to funding it, to the IT, to the software, to the integration systems, I do think the conversations stop. And
But
they're
aren't those benefits included in the basically the analysis of the costs and benefits over time of the
some,
Mark
but
Plus?
not the better utilizing the transmission system. I mean, you have dispatch, you have unit commitment, you have utilization of the transmission system, you have transmission planning, and you have reserve sharing. And not all those benefits are quantified in the production cost model. It's just the dispatch and maybe some unit commitment. So that's the integration I'm trying to get to. And that's the broader number that was quantified in the CTCA report. And that's why I think it's useful to spend whatever it is, a few millions per year to keep trying to get it. So, but we can take this up again next week. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Deaver?
It seems in the realm of efficiency, perhaps we should ask Ms. Rosati to briefly discuss the motion to strike that was filed. Or if you prefer to wait on that as well.
Sounds like Commissioner Plant. Well, I think my preference, given where our vote would end today, would be to wait. So I'd like to bring this back next week, and we can take this up next week. Commissioner Gilman, anything you would like to add?
No, nothing I'd like to add. I mean, look, I certainly don't want to come off as unsympathetic to your ambitions and concerns here. I think
But
I would respectfully disagree that a vote no here kills the dialogue. We have a statutory mandate that the dialogue continue on what the path forward is here. So it will necessarily continue.
With no funding, no structure, no market.
Yeah, I mean, but
So,
look,
it's a statutory mandate.
signing ratepayers up for something with more benefits than it has cost, just to continue a dialogue when the dialogue is essentially statutory mandated to continue and have a fulsome evaluation by that deadline. I just don't see it as cutting that off. I agree they're not getting what they asked for here, but I would say it's because the application did not show that it provided benefits to the ratepayers.
Defined very narrowly. I think you're just defining it very narrowly. All right, I guess we'll bring this back next week. I'm not sure much is going to change. But I don't know, Commissioner Plant, anything else you want to add?
No, I appreciate hearing the arguments, and one of the things that I wanted to do was to hear where both of you are. I've told you sort of where I am in terms of my own analysis, but I think want to take your comments and the considerations that you brought to it, both of you brought to it, and give it a little more thought before we make a final decision on this.
I appreciate your willingness to do that and talk to council and advisors, and we can bring it back next week. Commissioner Gilman, anything else before we adjourn for today?
Nothing else, thanks.
Commissioner Plant? All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thanks.